This is the biggest story in America. The mass migration of people out of blue states and blue cities into red states and red cities. So look, think of the cities that the left has held up as paragons of social, progressive success. San Francisco, Los Angeles, Portland, Seattle. Have you been to those cities lately? I mean, they were a disgrace to America.
Just want to make it clear, I knew this guy. He was a friend of mine before everybody else talked about him, okay? So before he was famous, I was a friend. I could call him up and we talked. Steve
You
Moritz.
could have been a contender.
I could have been somebody. I could have been somebody. I was a fan of yours when you put out the book, Getting Better All the Time.
Yes, 2000.
With
that
the
was
late
23 years ago.
Yeah, with the late, great
Julian
Simon. And for such a mean, nasty, awful, curmudgeon guy, you put out this book that was mostly graphs that said, thanks to capitalism, everybody's living a much better life. Mm-hmm. And it basically said, because of the free market, we are living a better life. People on the lowest end of the spectrum in America are living lives of the best kings, even better than they are. And this was almost a quarter century ago since we got introduced and became friends. Do you still hold that position?
Things are still getting better for the vast majority of Americans. There's a reason everybody in the world wants to come here. One area, just as an example, that really surprises people, and it's very relevant to the debate that's going on right now, is air quality. Air quality has improved dramatically over the last 40 years. But I bet if you ask the average high school or college student, they'd say it's worse.
It's awful.
Even though it's, you and I are old enough to remember when cities like Denver and Houston and
we had the brown
Pittsburgh.
cloud.
Yeah,
we had a third. We had a third of the population in Denver, and we had a brown cloud, and people were dying because of it.
All right. So you look, and the other thing that's happened, think of how the world's changed since 2000 with the technology revolution. Now, some people may be worried about that with the artificial intelligence that's coming and robotics, but Americans live longer, they live healthier, we have higher incomes, we have cleaner air, cleaner water. Now, I'm not saying there aren't problems. One of the problems that's emerged has been big government. Government just seems to be getting bigger. My biggest concern right now as an economist is that it seems to me that there's a big part of the population that wants to slay the goose that lays the golden eggs, which is the free enterprise system. And this isn't complicated. The freer you are, the more free markets you have, the more you depend on a free enterprise system, the richer you get. What's so complicated about that?
A lot, it seems. All right, so I remember you with Cato and Heritage, and then you float around. I remember visiting you when you helped start
Club for Growth?
Club for Growth. Yeah. And I went to visit you. I was like, I want to see you in action. And so I was going to see you in the palatial estates that was Club for Growth. And this was an organization that helped pick more conservative Republicans in primaries, which was a real big idea back in the time.
We were sort of the first super PAC.
Yeah. Right. And so I went up to see you, and you were in some evil guy's office someplace, and I found you, and you were in an office that did have a window that faced a brick wall, and it was just covered in paper, and there you were. It's like, wait a minute, this is the Steve Moore? This is the great guy. But your career has bordered the academic and the activist. It's just been great to know you for all these years, because you're an academic, but you're always fighting at the same time. So
yeah, you got to be a street fighter, and you are too. And let's see.
I am no academic. I can barely read.
But I'm trying to remember. Were you the original founder of
No. I just stole the place from guys who did. John Andrews started the Independence Institute, then Tom Tancredo ran it.
But it's been a long time.
It's been a long. No,
when are they going to kick you out of here?
if I lose this gig, I am unemployable. So it's the only thing I'd be saying into a microphone is, you want fries with that? Let me ask you about.
Let me just say one thing about this. I've been so blessed in my career that I've really, since I graduated from college, I've really loved virtually every job that I've had. So, and the thing that my favorite job was working for the Wall Street Journal, which was just, like they're paying me to do this, because the Wall Street Journal editorial page, which I hope everyone is reading every morning because it's a must read, it was just so much fun. And then, I had the Club for Growth and worked at Heritage Foundation in the 80s when it was Reagan's think tank. And so I've been really, really blessed.
I think what you're doing now with the Center to Unleash Prosperity is one of the most hard-hitting things I get. I get a ton of emails, and there's only a few that I feel.
Do you read the Committee to Unleash Prosperity
every
hotline?
Day?
Good.
So
you made my day.
There's only a couple emails that I get, mass emails, that I feel I must open. One, of course, are the Viagra ads, but the second to that are the emails you send out every day. I want you to give a plug for this because they are the most valuable emails I get every day.
Well, we try to, by the way, John Fund, who you know very well,
yes, and he's been on the show many times.
We have a great staff, and it's just 5 or 6 little bullet items every morning. Sometimes it's just a graph or a chart on the economy. We do a little politics. We started it during COVID because
nobody was getting information.
The information that people were getting from the government was all wrong, and I'm proud of the fact that we called them out on it. I mean, I think almost everyone watching this show knows today that the government was full of what when they were telling us. They ran a campaign of fear to scare people intentionally. And by the way, never, never, never again should we ever allow the government to shut down our schools and our churches and our businesses. And remember, right at early on, like March or April of 2020, we had a powwow here. And we talked a lot about it, and we were right and they were wrong.
Well, and also, they came after you for saying this was wrong. They put you in their sights for saying this is wrong.
We were fighting for freedom.
I was fighting for my son to get an education because he was pulled out of school. He has Down syndrome, and a year out of school was terrible, and he never got it back.
So on the Committee to Unleash Prosperity hotline, just as an example, we're really excoriating Randi Weingarten. You know her. She's the head. I mean, she's the head of the teachers union across the United States, and she was singularly, I shouldn't say singularly, but it's probably the most important voice in America for keeping the school shut down month after month after month after month after month, in some cases 18 months of school closures. And now she's saying, I wasn't for school closures, like Fauci saying, I wasn't for shutting down the economy. We have you on tape 100 times at the White House saying that. So the left is trying to rewrite this history, and we try to hold their feet to the fire. And we had a really great, the other day, we had a really great just video, it was 3 minutes long of Randi Weingarten saying all these things. Oh, the schools have to stay shut, and we have to worry about the teachers and so on. And so we try to call people out. We try to give people really relevant information about what's going on with the economy, what's going on with politics, and a little humor. So I'm glad you like it. If people want to just go to Committee to Unleash Prosperity, a website, and sign up. And there's no inflation because it's free.
What I love about it is it's short, great, factual information that is a little snarky. It's snarky, but there's real information, and you know where it comes from, and it's fact-based, and it's really, really helpful stuff. All right, let's get into the meat of this. The nation's in trouble. The state's in trouble. I want to talk about inflation and the economy. You, Julian Simon, our mutual friend Art Laffer, we know that lower tax rates, particularly when it comes to income tax, doesn't always mean lower tax income for the government. Explain this to people, because here in Colorado, there is always this push to undo what we at Independence Institute have done. Before independence, Colorado had a progressive income tax. The highest rate was 8%. We came in, we lowered it to 5%. And after our work, and you've been supportive of it, we've lowered the tax now to 4.5%. 4.4, we have a goal
going.
to eliminate
Right.
the income tax altogether.
Right.
And even our tax-crazed governor, who likes all sorts of taxes disguised as fees, at least he'll say there shouldn't be an income tax. You shouldn't tax what you want, which is income. That doesn't. He doesn't do anything to help us with it, but he
At least
says
rhetorically,
he
he's
says
saying
that.
it. Right.
Why is that a good idea?
Well, let's keep this really simple. When you tax something, you get less of it. Right? It's very simple. If you, why do we tax cigarettes? Right? Because we want the people to smoke less. Why do we give people speeding tickets, which is a tax? Because we don't want you to speed on the highways. And so you're going to get less of something if you tax it. And so I've never understood even the logic of an income tax. So you're basically taxing people on their entrepreneurship, on their hard work, on their investment. In other words, we're taxing virtues. We should be taxing vices, not virtues. And so it would make much more sense to tax people on what they take out of the economy, what you consume, rather than what you put into the economy, your hard work and your entrepreneurship and your investment money and your savings. And so we should restructure the system. Now in Colorado, people might say, well, gosh, how could we run this state without an income tax? Well, the answer to that is easy. We have 9 states that don't have income taxes, including Florida and Texas and Tennessee, three of the shining examples. And those states have budget surpluses. They have good public services. And they're booming. They are booming. So I would contend that if you want to, really have a, takeoff in the economy in Colorado, if you were to basically announce we're getting rid of our income tax, you would just see an explosion of prosperity in this state.
You're wrong. Let me tell you why you're wrong.
Okay.
You said if you want to get rid of something, if you want to punish something, you tax it. You don't want cigarettes, you tax it.
Right.
We don't want millionaires. We don't want a ruling class. We don't want an exploitative class. This is why we want a progressive income tax system, because we have people who exploit others. Those are millionaires. Those are billionaires. Those are people at the top end. Those people at the top end are unfairly using the system and exploiting people at the bottom end of the system. So that's why a progressive income tax system does exactly what you said. It taxes cigarettes. It taxes those people that have too much and helps people down here. That's what we want to do. It's just what you're saying about speeding tickets.
Well, let me give you an example, okay? So I'm going to say something that's very politically incorrect. I love millionaires and billionaires. I want more millionaires and billionaires. And people who are successful and build great businesses, whether it's Bernie Marcus or whether it's Mark
Bernie
Zuckerberg.
Madoff?
No, Bernie Madoff was a criminal. And he went to jail and he lost everything as he should. But I want to tell you the story of Ken Griffin. He is the billionaire founder of Citadel, which is a hedge fund, and he has 1,000 employees, and he's been amazingly successful and created incredible businesses with his investments and so on. So his business was in my hometown of Chicago. As you know, I'm a Chicago boy. And he built the business there. He went to college there, and was he gave more money in philanthropy to the museum and the homeless shelters and all of the the social causes. He was by far the biggest giver. Well, the Chicago Tribune and all the media said, "Oh, he's not paying his fair share of taxes. He's a billionaire. He's not paying enough." And so they kept coming after him. And then another thing happened. Crime went way up in Chicago. Now, crime is a tax, right? Crime is a tax. It increases the cost of everything you do. So if you want to reduce taxes, reduce your crime. So finally he said, I just can't, my employees aren't even safe coming into the office here. I can't stay here. So these left-wing policies finally got him to move out of Chicago. Guess what? He moved to Miami, where there's no income tax and where you have good crime prevention. And all of a sudden the left said, first they said, oh, good, we're getting rid of this billionaire. Well, then all of a sudden the charity said, well, does that mean he's not going to give $50 million to the Museum of Science and Industry? Does that mean the homeless shelter isn't going to get money? Does that mean that the opera? And they said, now that he's in Miami, he might not give anymore. And it put a huge hole in the Illinois budget because he himself paid like $50 million $50 to $100 million in state taxes. So they finally chased them out. Now they don't have their billionaire. They got a big hole in their budget. So what Colorado needs is more millionaires and billionaires, not fewer. You're going to have more jobs in your...
It is odd how they don't seem to think that when you tax these guys and you hit them with the millionaire's tax, that they have feet.
Right.
And they're going to go someplace else.
Right. And then, by the way, this is the biggest story of what's happening in America. And the left is quite embarrassed by this. I debate liberals all the time. I debate, people like Robert Reich and people like Paul Krugman and so on. And, we can debate about whether we should have the government run the healthcare system or this or that, or, how much taxes matter. The one thing that they have no explanation for, the liberal socialists, is if your policies work so well, why is it that people are leaving California? Why are they leaving Illinois? Why are they leaving New York? And why are they going to Texas? Why are they going to Florida? Why are they going to Tennessee? Why are they going to Utah? And I remember Paul Krugman, I debated him once in front of 1,000 people. He said, Steve, there's a very easy explanation. People are moving for the weather. And I just nailed him. I said, well, that's interesting. You're saying...
California?
People, what?
They're leaving California for the weather.
Yeah, exactly. I said, people are leaving San Diego, going to Houston for the weather? I don't think so. So this is the biggest story in America. The mass migration of people out of blue states and blue cities into red states and red cities. So think of the cities that the left has held up as paragons of social, progressive success. San Francisco, Los Angeles, Portland, Seattle. Have you been to those cities lately? I mean, they were a disgrace to America. For the first time, people are en masse leaving San Francisco, they're leaving Portland, they're leaving Seattle, because the left-wing policies of high taxes, soft on crime, runaway government spending.
It's not just the rich guys. You look at Portland, where Walmart, where poor people go to get their food, their supplies, their clothes.
They're shutting down.
They're shutting down because they're losing all their money to crime, and they can't.
Which is funny, by the way. You're exactly right. It's not funny. It's sad that the left says, the problem with our cities is they've used this term food deserts. You can't find a grocery store. You can't find a Walmart. Well, guess what? It's your own policies that are causing. And by the way, that some remember AOC said, we don't want Walmart here, we don't want Amazon here.
Oh, good. Well, you got what you wanted.
There, you don't have the jobs.
Hey, I want to dive into monetary policy, my bugaboo, and I was so thrilled when President Trump said, I want my buddy Steve Moore to be on the Fed board, and I saw that news and I was like, oh my God. Now, I'm going to know somebody on the Federal Reserve Board. And I said, this is going to be good.
That's
and
big time.
that lasted for about a day and a half because you're too easy of a target.
Yeah,
and I when I said...
It's easy. You open up my closet and the skeletons just fall out all over the place. I know you don't have those kinds of problems.
Like I'm going to get invited onto the Fed board. And I called you up and I said, Steve, what happened? Why didn't you make it? And you said, because I know people like you, John.
Yeah, right.
Which was
well, I'll just say one quick thing about that. What happened really, I always wondered when President Trump asked me to do that, to be honest, I didn't care one way or the other. I mean, that's a pretty boring job to be among a bunch of there's only one person who has power at the Federal Reserve, and that's Chairman Powell, and I wasn't going to be the chairman. So
although you get inside information, which a guy like you,
and you get a little pin, and so
you get a great parking space.
Frankly, it wasn't my dream job. I didn't care one way or the other. But you don't say no to the president when he calls you and says he wants you to do it. So I honestly didn't think anybody would really pay any attention to this. I mean, can you mention other than Jerome Powell anyone else on the Federal Reserve Board?
I know like 3 names that I'd have.
You're pretty good. You probably most people don't even know Jerome Powell's. Anyway, to make a long story short, the arrows just started slinging as soon as, because, I'm a controversial guy, but B, they were intimidated by the fact that I had these ideas that weren't part of the club. See, all these things in Washington
You didn't want to just print money.
Yeah, they're clubs. And if you're not part of the club, they don't want you. And so my ideas were, like I was saying, we should just have a monetary rule. Just tell everybody what that rule is, and we don't have to have all these 400 PhD economists over there who screw things up. And oh my God, that was incredibly threatening. And that, I think, was the real reason that the left did everything they could to make sure I wasn't on the board. And it's sad because it wasn't just me that was taken down, but my friend Judy Shelton, who actually was more qualified than I was to be on the Federal Reserve Board. She's a real monetary expert, probably one of the 5 greatest experts in the country. And they took her down there because, you know why? She had said some good things about the gold standard, and that disqualified her.
And think about that. When you say there should be a rule, that's a brilliant idea because that's what it should be. That the Federal Reserve basically has one big lever. And the lever is to make more money into the system or pull more money out of the system. You know, when we were on a gold standard, that was it. The dollar bills and the amount of gold had a ratio.
And everybody knew what it was.
And knew what
the rules was.
And that, therefore, but businesses, banks, they want more money. There's always a demand for more money. And so a good banking system, money system, keeps the demand for money in check. It keeps it back. Otherwise, you get inflation.
Look, one of the pillars of prosperity is a stable currency. You know, look at the countries that fail. Look at Argentina. Look at Venezuela. Look at Mexico. Look at Greece. Look at Zimbabwe. I mean, you just go. They let their currencies go.
Look
crazy.
at Germany when there's hyperinflation.
Exactly.
And when it goes on a global scale, it usually ends badly in war.
So I don't want to get too much in the weeds here, but so because we have a Federal Reserve, you have a whole industry of people that are just trying to guess what the Federal Reserve is going to do next.
Right.
A whole industry. You know, why do we need that? It's a total waste of resources. So if everybody just knew automatically what the Fed would do, for example, what I was in favor of, just look at all commodities. We know that what happens to commodity prices in real time. And if the commodity prices are rising, that means inflation's up. So we have to raise interest rates to, take money out of the system. Commodity prices are falling, you have deflation, so you have to, cut interest rates. It's not complicated. It would keep the dollar strong and stable, and that's what we want. And now we have a situation where the dollar is under attack because we've had, these herky-jerky movements in the money supply. And one of the reasons we had, inflation hit 9.1% last summer, even though the Fed said it was transitory, was that you had this money creation at the same time you had the United States government under Biden spending $6 trillion we didn't have.
So you have monetary policy, which is the Fed doing make more money, pull back more money, and then you've got government doing fiscal policy, which is spending money they don't have and going into debt.
That's right.
And these guys are always out of whack. And so these guys the fiscal guys are spending money they don't have, robbing from our great-grandchildren, putting them into debt, and you've got the Fed making up dollar bills out of nothing. Tell me if I've got this wrong. There is no way out of this. And pardon me for being Debbie Downer, but if you draw out the pictures of the debt we currently have, which scares the hell out of me, but you add on to it the promises we've made that cannot be paid for. And just on the fiscal side, it blows up. It cannot be done. It's like your buddy who's maxed out his credit cards. You go, you're going to go bankrupt. There's no way to do it. And then you add on to this the monetary side, which says, we have this money that's backed up by nothing, and it's paper. And I look at this and I go, and this is the world's currency. This, at some point, maybe not in our lifetime, probably in our kids' lifetime, this has to blow up. Do you see any other way?
I don't think it's going to blow up. I think we're going to be poorer as a result of that.
What does that mean, we're going to be poorer?
It means that
Draw a picture for me.
Look, you can't tax and borrow your way to prosperity. It's that simple. And so we're just, it's almost
like... It works for a generation or two.
We would be more prosperous if we hadn't done these crazy things. And what we're doing right now is like at times at 10, what we were doing. When I first came to Washington in 1985, the debt was about 1.8 trillion. Now it's 31.8 trillion. Boy, I'm having a good effect, aren't I?
Yeah.
And then, the debt is now expected to go to 50 trillion. So the left has this philosophy that, have you ever heard of modern monetary theory? Have you ever heard of that?
spend and all will be well.
Exactly. It's
it's basically Keynesianism on steroids.
Since we're the world reserve currency and foreigners are willing to lend us money, then we can. I mean, they really believe this, that we can just spend and borrow as much as we want. Now, that's a dingbat theory. I think most everybody knows that. And we used to laugh at it when these people first started talking about it. And then Joe Biden came in and he did it. He's doing an experiment in modern monetary theory. How do you like it, folks? Is it working?
What's the difference between modern monetary theory and good old Keynesianism?
They're related. You know, they're the same thing, which is Keynes' whole idea was you can run up big debts and you don't have to worry about it. And this is the only kind of nuance here is they're making the claim, well, not every country can do this, but we can because we have, and look, we do have a huge advantage over the rest of the world that we are the world reserve currency. And no, I don't think the dollar is going to be replaced by any other, well, it's not going to be replaced by any other government currency. Maybe a crypto private currency would come along and replace it. But come on, you're going to invest in yuan? Are you going to invest in euros? Are you going to invest in pesos? I mean, we are the least rotten apple in the cart. And that.
But I am going to invest in Bitcoin.
Yeah, well, that's a crypto, right? Yeah. And so that's why, by the way, I'm a big fan of cryptos, even though I tell people be very cautious. But the idea, this is the other thing, the left is against cryptos because this upsets their apple cart.
Which is
all
why
of a sudden
the
you have
Fed
a private competitor to the dollar, and they don't want that.
And for those people who don't get it, the reason why people like, well, me, we're so crazy about crypto is it can't be inflated. At least Bitcoin, some can.
Well, it can be, but
Bitcoin
what
can
you
be.
really need is like a crypto that's gold-backed, you know, that somehow retains its value. I mean, look at, to say it, you know, I mean, the Bitcoin's gone like up and down and up and down and up and down. It's gone mostly up.
But that's an illusion because you're only comparing it to a fiat currency.
That's a good point.
When you look at Bitcoin, no, it's been completely stable. There's only been X whatever limit of Bitcoin, and it has never been inflated. Yeah. You know, there's only been so many.
Well, but there is one fundamental difference, and I'm a fan of cryptos, but there is the full faith and credit of the United States government behind the dollar bill. You don't have that protection with it. I mean, Bitcoin could go to zero.
What does that mean? Yes, you're right. Crypto, somebody could hack the code and it goes away.
Yeah,
agreed. And our government could go bust.
Oh, that's true too. And it's on the way to doing that.
And I don't see how it doesn't. And
well,
you say,
if we look, you know, I was very proud to work for Trump. We were doing great as a country. I remember in the early 2020 thinking, oh my God, he's going to win re-election by the biggest landslide in the history of the country.
I thought so too.
And then of course, you know, COVID hit and changed everything. And but it pains me because truly, I mean, if Trump were still president, and look, he's very flawed. I know people have very strong opinions about his personality and his crazy behavior, but his policies were pretty darn good. And we put in the tax cuts, the deregulation, the pro-America energy policy, we got control of the border, all these things.
And the judges.
So the point is that this was, you know, if you turn those dials in the right direction, as happened under Reagan and happened under Trump, good things happen. So I'm not here to say, you know, we're facing Armageddon. I do think another 4 years of a Biden or someone like him, you're just digging that ditch deeper
and
deeper.
Let's switch gears.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Trump.
Yeah.
You worked for him. You were able to advise him. I remember you coming to one of our events and saying, he's going to win. And everyone was like, what?
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
And you were right. And then you came back and said, I told you I was right. Where we stand now, and by the way, we before this goes out, it's been a few weeks after we would tape this that people will see it. But at this point, when we tape, it is sure looking like we're going to have a repeat of that god-awful election we had now. You know, it makes me think, we got 330 million people here, and we've got these two crazed geriatrics running. When any other Republican, we've got great Republicans who can still do those same policies. I look at DeSantis, I go, this is a guy who can do this. Ramaswamy, this guy who writes for the Wall Street Journal often, this guy amazes me. He has a great fiscal monetary understanding. There are great guys out there, and who are not as polarizing as Trump, and they could win.
Trump is incredibly polarizing. He is truly his own worst enemy. He is, I've always said this, I said it, to your group 5 or 6 years ago, there's a good and a bad and an ugly about Trump. And so I take what you're saying. He is, maybe the only Republican who could lose to Biden. On the other hand, Biden's the only Democrat who could probably lose to Trump. So it's turning out to be a crazy situation. I'm not taking a position. I mean, in terms of endorsing Trump, I'm going to stay neutral. We have great Republican governors.
You've got to feel very loyal to him because you work for him.
He's been good to me. But look, Ron DeSantis is fantastic. I'm from Virginia. We have a great governor in Glenn Youngkin. People should pay attention to him. If I could handpick who I would want to be the Republican nominee, it would be Kim Reynolds, the governor of Iowa, who's like our Margaret Thatcher. She's unbelievable. You should get her out here to Colorado. She is a superstar, and she's done school choice. Have you done school choice yet in Colorado?
Have you met our governor?
I mean, come on, school choice is the school choice moment. So she's done school choice, she's cut taxes, she's cut the bureaucracy, she's a soccer grandmother. She'd be a nightmare for the Democrats to run against. So we have a lot of as Republicans, we have a lot of good candidates. And, Biden is, if I could handpick the Democrat I'd want to run against right now, it would be Joe Biden or maybe Kamala Harris.
How does this all end? So let me get back on track on. I just don't know how it all ends. You are positive, and people say I'm negative, but I'm not. I'm just trying to be realistic about we can't hold on to this much debt. More importantly, we cannot fulfill the promises we've made. And all I see is we have to inflate our way out of this problem.
You are wrong. We grow our way out of this problem.
I agree,
we grow
but
our way. Not growing the money supply, growing the output of the private sector. And there's no reason, if we just corrected the policies that are in place, I think you could see the economy. Look, COVID is over. It was a crisis. We shut down the whole economy for.
It was a politically made crisis.
Of course it was. But my point is, it's
I believe
over.
to get rid of a president, but we can talk about that later.
And we should be in a rational country, with a rational government. We should actually be running a budget surplus now. We should be paying off the debt.
You just made two assumptions that were the crazy assumptions.
So I do worry. Look, but I do think that the country is. This is a center-right country. I really do believe that. I think people are sick of the wokeism. I think they're sick of the debt. I think they're sick of the infringements on free speech. I think they instinctively get it that a country that continues to borrow and spend in the trillions of dollars this year alone, that we're going to borrow another $2 trillion. How could that be? Biden's running around the country saying he's cut the debt more. Have you heard him say this? I've cut the debt more than any other country, which is, other president. Ridiculous. So we are going to need new leadership. And whether that's Donald Trump or whether that's one of these great governors we have, I think the country is ready for real free market reform.
All right. Let me throw the BS flag on this one.
Okay.
Donald Trump raised debt.
He raised spending. I mean, Trump, did a lot of good things for the economy, but he was a big spender. He's a Keynesian himself. He loves to spend. Right. That's what politicians do, John. You know that.
Right.
And they love to spend money.
And so even if you get all these great governors elected, and even if you get a governor in the White House, the machine is made to keep printing dollars and keep debt spending.
You're too cynical. I mean, look at how quickly Reagan turned around the economy in the early 80s. I'm proud of what we did. And under Trump, all of a sudden the economy just boomed. As soon as it doesn't take a lot. All we have to do is just get the government out of the way. Just out of the way. And the private sector.
We just need to take those Rocky Mountains out of Colorado and put them in Missouri.
It's not that tough. We've done it before. Reagan turned around the economy on a dime back from the incredibly pathetic 1970s. I'm proud of what we did with Trump. When Trump came in, we had the years of Obama where the economy didn't grow at all, and all of a sudden the economy just boomed until COVID hit. So what I'm saying is, you change those dials from anti-growth to growth, and I think you get a really quick response.
Would you agree that Trump did not have the economic grounding that Reagan did?
Yes. Here's the thing about Trump.
Trump is a populist.
Yes. Yes.
Reagan was a true believer who, in his soul, understands what
if
you
you
and I
ask
did.
Trump who's F.A. Hayek, he's not gonna, he doesn't know any of that. But I have to say, having been in the Oval Office with Trump many times, especially during COVID, he is not ideological. He's not an ideological conservative like you or I are, but he has a common sense, and he was a successful businessman, and that counts for a lot. I mean,
He's
Joe
also a
Biden doesn't
crony,
know
though.
anything about business,
agreed.
right? And neither does anyone around him know anything about business, which is so frustrating to me. You have this woman, Lena Khan. Do you know who Lena Khan is? She's the head of Federal Trade. She's telling businesses which ones can merge, how to run their business. Lena, you've never run a business. You've never even run a lemonade stand. That's the case with most of the people in the Biden administration. Now, I'm not saying that businessmen and women are saints, but at least they know how to run things. And Trump had a lot of common sense to him. And that's one of the reasons that I think he was able to succeed, because this stuff is not complicated, John.
I will put a compliment to the organization you work for, Heritage Foundation. You're a senior fellow there. And I remember when Trump was running, and they were putting together, all right, we want to put together, whoever becomes president, we want to put together a team of advisors and this. And it was during the primaries of whoever gets the nomination. And then they kept it going when Trump was the nominee. And I'm looking at the Heritage Foundation going, are you nuts? Why would I waste any of my time helping you guys? There's no way this is going to happen. And they said, well,
there are a lot of good people. I mean,
and out of that came Betsy DeVos and
Larry Kudlow,
and all these
really
incredible
good people.
So when the impossible did happen, Trump had an army of great people. I look at Leo Leonard, who put together this incredible plan. The most important thing I think Trump did was to put in Supreme Court and other judges.
Were fantastic.
Which was incredible.
I think one of the most important things he did was pull the United States out of the anti-America Paris Climate Accord, which is all about America paying for everything else. And by the way, the first thing Biden did when he became president was put us into that as well. But I'm not saying Trump is the one. I think he was a good president in terms of his policies. I think he was his own worst enemy. I agree with you. It's going to be very difficult for him to win another election, given his behavior. On the other hand, if it comes down to the economy, here's the case for Trump. Okay, here's the case for Trump, especially with Biden. Remember when Ronald Reagan stared right into that camera in the debate against Jimmy Carter and said, "Are you better off than you were 4 years ago?" Most Americans feel they're worse off today than when Biden became president, and that's a high, hurdle for any Democrat, whether it's Joe Biden or any of these guys, Pete Buttigieg, By the way, where is the bench on the Democratic side? The only one that I can think of is your governor here in Colorado.
If that is the bench, I am terrified.
I'm teasing, folks. I knew that would get a rise out of John Calder.
I'm moving to Hong Kong. So if Trump becomes president again, do you worry it becomes a revenge tour?
I do. Yep, I do.
Tell me about that, because
everything's personal with Trump.
Right.
And so, yeah, I do worry about that. You know, what I loved about Trump when he ran in 2016, and the reason you talked about this earlier, that I had predicted he was going to win, is because this message of putting America first and making America great again. America, Republican.
Right.
You know, that's a very popular, make America great again, put America first. And now I worry a little bit, with Trump, it's put Trump first. You know, and so, yeah, I do worry about that. I have a lot of good conversations with the president. He's always been, fantastic to me personally. So we'll see. But, I always say, when I say, go to bed at night, I say, please, God, let the good in Trump, prevail over the ugly.
if the good of Trump were to prevail, he'd drop out.
Yeah, exactly.
You agree?
Ooh, well,
You did say it.
But look, again, I love a lot about the guy. He, like most politicians, is a narcissist.
Like every politician to some extent.
Right.
So he is a narcissist. I didn't want him to run. I actually ran as a delegate to vote against him. I reluctantly voted for him the first time. I enthusiastically voted for him the second time. I thought the way he handled January 6th was an embarrassment to us all. And I think
let me put it very
yeah,
simply.
go ahead.
If Trump had just simply said, and I talked to the president afterwards, and he became a different person. After that election, it was difficult to talk to him. But my advice was, look, maybe the election was, I don't think we'll ever know. I mean, what happened with this election. I mean, there was a lot of voter fraud going on. But imagine this alternative scenario where Trump said, I think the election was stolen, but I'm going to concede the election and just be a stand-up guy. Think of how popular it'd be today.
Right.
So he blew it. He blew it with what happened on January 6th, and even going on CNN the other night and saying, oh my gosh, the election was stolen. Get off of it, okay? People don't want to talk about that anymore, right?
Yeah. Talk about inflation.
Talk about the future.
Talk about how people are hurting.
Yeah.
Talk about how when you were president,
Exactly. Yes.
people were making a better living. Right. Talk about how inflation was 2%.
And by the way, I saw the president about 3-4 weeks ago, and we talked for about 10 minutes. I said, Mr. President, talk about how you rebuilt the economy. And I said, Mr. President, stop the trash talking. Stop that. Now, he's not going to do this. But I said it. And, and he says, Steve, a lot of people tell me that.
What kind of guy was he? Not is he, but was he?
Trump
because I've read the books, I listened to the books because
right.
I'm dyslexic and I don't know how to read, but they all seem to draw the same picture, that he is wildly insecure and that he is most concerned with how he is perceived by others, by the masses.
I think that's
and
true.
as soon as someone is too critical, that the guy's dead to me. So I hire a guy, and as long as he's kissing my ass, he's a great guy.
Yeah.
But as soon as he brings me news that I don't want to hear, then he's dead to me, which is not something I want in a leader. I want somebody who tells me the things I don't want to hear.
One of the reasons, John, that I never actually took a job with Trump was I really felt like I could have more impact, and I'm just going in to see him once every few months.
Did he ever offer you a job?
They offered me some jobs, including being on the Federal Reserve and so on, and being on his domestic policy council. But we've been kind of cool to work in the White House, but that way I could just go in and tell him whatever I wanted to say, because he couldn't fire me, and I think he respected that. And a lot of times he'd throw me out, get out of here, blah, blah, blah. I mean, that was the kind of relationship we had. So Trump is. There was one, I've said this many times to you, there's a commonality between Trump and Reagan. They were always underestimated by their political opponents. Reagan was and Trump is. Trump running for president, they were rolling over, laughing so hard, all of a sudden, he's in the White House. And so he is underestimated. The guy is not stupid. He understands. And the thing that I think is really impressive about Trump is he saw something in America that nobody else saw. Why did people vote for Trump in the end? I think it was because people were just saying, screw you, Washington. We're sick of what you're doing. I don't agree with everything Trump says. Nobody does. But you know what? He's going to stick it to you people. And that's why the left was so out to get him from the moment. I mean, it's amazing that we achieved, John, what we did, given the fact that everyone in Washington was against what he was trying to do, including the deep state, which is very real. I mean, the deep state is real. These people in these agencies tried to undermine every single thing that he did. So I'm kind of proud that we accomplished what we did, given how, and the media was against it. By the way, what did they spend the first 2 years talking about when he was president? Every single night, the Russia collusion hoax. They almost impeached him on a completely falsified piece of evidence. So, given that, it's amazing what he accomplished what he did.
Agreed. But let me also challenge, one of the reasons he was elected was how everyone hated Hillary.
That's true.
I mean, she was just a remarkably dislikable individual.
I mean,
the polar opposite of her husband, who everybody wanted to have a beer with.
That's true. But remember, everybody said Hillary's going to win by 20 points and and Trump recognized that Hillary, and he took it to her in those debates in a way that, no one else had done before. So we'll see. I mean, I think, Trump is probably going to win the nomination, but it's not for certain by any means. And, a lot can change. Isn't
it an awful American system we have when it is a year and a half away from even the nomination, and it's still it's campaign season.
Yeah.
It's just so different than
never stops.
The UK system where call the election and in a few weeks it's done and we're back to business. It's tiresome.
Well, there's two things people don't want. They don't want Donald Trump to be the next president, and they want
Yeah,
Joe Biden to be
Biden
the next president. And so it might be those are the two people who are nominated. But it's an important election, though.
Didn't you run into Hillary? This was years ago. Didn't you run into Hillary in an airport once? Tell the story.
Just a very quick story. So,
I
it was at a congressional hearing when she was a senator.
Right.
Remember, people forget she was a United States senator. And
a carpetbagger.
What's that?
A carpetbagger.
Yeah, ran. Was it Arkansas or Illinois or New York that she was a senator from? Anyway, she came up to me after my testimony, shook my hand, and it was like the Ice Queen. And I swear to God, I got this like chill that went through my body. She's not a warm person, and that was one of the big reasons that Trump was able to defeat her. But Biden's also a very weak candidate. I mean, the problem for Trump 2020 was that it was basically a referendum on him, not his policies.
But every election since 2016 has been a referendum on him, and every time Republicans have lost. In 2018, Republicans lost. In 2020, Republicans lost. In 2022, Republicans have lost.
That's not true. I'm going to challenge you on that. So in 2020 was a red wave election. Republicans won city council races. They picked up 100 state legislative races. We picked up 20 seats in the House of Representatives. Donald Trump carried every Republican over the goal line except himself. And so Trump has incredible coattail effects. He has negative effects, but what he is for the Republicans is a turnout machine. And look, there are a lot of really great alternative candidates to Trump. The question is, if you're a Republican like I am, can those other alternative candidates turn out those blue-collar, disaffected workers the way Trump did? I hope the alternative can.
Those, what we used to call Reagan Democrats.
Exactly. And they voted en masse. I remember going to Pennsylvania. I went to a rally in central Pennsylvania. There was a line of trucks 4 miles long, every one with the American flag on it. I've never seen anything like it. And these
were union guys.
Most of them were.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, we'll see. I mean, it's important that we elect someone who will reverse the policies that Biden has put in place.
If Trump wins again, will he be able to attract the same caliber of people working in the...
Yes.
Really?
He will. Yes. He will. I mean, we have a team. I'm working with, Brooke Rollins, who runs the American First Policy Institute. These are really impressive people. And we'll not only that, we will hit the ground running. I mean, my God, it's like just, start right where we left off with better trade deals. The first thing he's to do is get control of the border. We're going to reverse all these crazy climate change policies. So
after he's finished beating up every Republican that ever said anything bad about him.
Yeah. The guy's no angel. The guy is no angel.
Who would he choose as a running mate?
Well, I'd love to see Kim Reynolds, or I think it would be really important for him to choose a woman. But
there's a joke there that I'm not taking.
We need Colorado. Maybe John Caldera.
That he lost by 16 percentage points, but still there are people who say he won.
Yeah, I mean, this is a subject for another. Next time I'm on the show, I want to interview you. I don't understand Colorado. I mean, Colorado should be a purple state, and it's a blue state. And you're supposed to be changing
I failed. It's all my fault, as we all know. Hey, dude, one more plug for the committee.
Just if people want to get our hotline, it is free. It costs nothing. I'm not selling you anything, folks. I want you to be the smartest person in the room. So just go to Committee to Unleash Prosperity website. Just give us your email, and we'll send it.
Committee to Unleash Prosperity.
Yep.
I tell you, it is the best email I get every day.
Thank you. This really means a lot.
Between that, if there's two things to read every day, it is the editorial page of the Wall Street Journal, and even more so, I think, your email. Steve, I value you.
Good to see you, my friend.
Take care. If you enjoyed that conversation, by all means, click one of these other great programs. We have the best conversations with the most fascinating Coloradans. And subscribe to our channel. Just click down below and hit that little bell button too. You don't want to miss a single show.